Lieutenant Nova Theron stood at her research station aboard the Stellar Alliance vessel Horizon, her iridescent scales shimming under the lab's bright lights. As the ship's lead xenobiologist, she had spent the last 3 months studying human medical advances, particularly their revolutionary combat enhancement serums. Her four-fingered hands moved gracefully across the holographic display, analyzing the latest batch of test results. The humans' ability to enhance their natural capabilities had always fascinated her. As an Andromedian, her species possessed natural advantages in speed and sensory perception, but their physical strength paled in comparison to Earth's gravity-hardened warriors. The serum before her promised to bridge that gap, potentially leading to breakthroughs in cross-species medical treatments. Lieutenant Theron, how's the analysis coming along? Dr. Marcus Reed, the ship's human medical officer, entered the lab with his characteristic brisk stride. His dark eyes sparkled with curiosity as he approached her station. "Fascinating results, Doctor," Nova replied, her vertical pupils dilating with excitement. "The molecular structure of this variant seems more stable than previous versions. I believe it might be compatible with non-human physiologies." Marcus frowned, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "That's a bold hypothesis, Nova. The serum was specifically designed for human biology. The risks of cross-species testing would be significant." Nova's antenna twitched, a sign of mild frustration. "We'll never advance cross-species medicine without taking calculated risks. Besides, the preliminary simulations show promising results." Their discussion was interrupted by the ship's warning klaxon. "Attention all personnel, we are entering an ion storm. Secure all stations and prepare for turbulence." Captain Diana Henderson's voice echoed through the intercom. Nova quickly began securing her samples, but the first wave hit before she could finish. The ship lurched violently, sending equipment crashing to the floor. She stumbled, her hand knocking over several vials. In her attempt to catch them, one broke, its contents splashing across her scales. "Nova." Marcus rushed to her side, medical scanner already in hand. "Did any enter your system?" She wiped her face, but her specialized scales had already absorbed some of the serum. Yes, through my dermal layer. But it's such a small amount." Her words cut off as an intense sensation swept through her body. Her normally cool temperature began to rise, and her vision sharpened to an almost painful degree. Every sound, from the hum of the ship's engines to Marcus's quickening heartbeat, became crystal clear. "We need to get you to Medical Bay immediately," Marcus said, supporting her as her legs began to tremble. "Your biological readings are going haywire." Nova tried to respond, but another wave of sensations overwhelmed her. Her muscles felt like they were rewiring themselves, becoming denser, stronger. Her typical Andromedian blue-gray skin began to take on a subtle metallic sheen. "Fascinating," she managed to whisper, her scientific curiosity battling with growing concern. "The serum, it's not just being absorbed, it's adapting to my physiology." Marcus helped her onto a medical bed as more of the crew rushed in. "Stay with me, Nova. We're going to figure this out." As her consciousness began to fade, Nova couldn't help but think that she had just stumbled upon the biggest discovery of her career, assuming she survived to document it. The last thing she saw was Marcus barking orders to his medical team, their faces a blur of motion as her enhanced senses finally overwhelmed her, plunging her into darkness. Through her fading awareness, Nova realized that she had become more than just an observer of human medical advancement. She was now part of the experiment itself. The implications would change everything they thought they knew about cross-species medical compatibility, assuming she lived long enough to report her findings. Nova's return to consciousness came in waves of heightened sensation. The medical bay's antiseptic scent burned her enhanced olfactory receptors, and the subtle vibration of the ship's engines felt like thunder through her bones. She opened her eyes to find even the dimmed lights almost unbearably bright, each photon seemingly visible to her transformed nervous system. "She's awake." Marcus's voice came from somewhere to her left, though it sounded different now. She could hear the subtle variations in his vocal patterns, the slight elevation in his heart rate, even the soft rush of air through his lungs. "How long?" Nova managed to ask, her own voice sounding foreign to her enhanced hearing. 36 hours, replied Captain Henderson, stepping into view. The captain's normally stern expression carried an undercurrent of concern that Nova could now read in minute muscle movements. "You've had us worried, Lieutenant." Nova attempted to sit up, only to accidentally tear through the medical restraints as if they were paper. She stared at her hands in fascination. Her scales had taken on a crystalline quality, refracting light in ways that shouldn't have been possible with organic matter. "Careful," Marcus cautioned, approaching with a scanner. "Your strength has increased exponentially. We've recorded instances of you breaking through titanium alloy restraints during your fever dreams." The implications of his words sent Nova's mind racing. "The serum, it's not just enhancing my existing abilities. It's creating new ones, adapting to my andromesian physiology in unexpected ways." "That's putting it mildly." A new voice joined the conversation. Dr. Raven Blackwood, the ship's theoretical xenobiologist, emerged from behind a bank of monitors. Her dark eyes gleamed with barely contained excitement. "Your cellular structure is rewriting itself. The serum isn't just enhancing you, it's evolving you." Nova processed this information while carefully testing her movements. Every motion felt both powerful and precise, as if her body had been upgraded to some advanced form of itself. "The preliminary data from my research suggested adaptation, but nothing on this scale." "That's because your physiology acted as a catalyst," Raven explained, pulling up a holographic display of Nova's cellular structure. "Your specialized scales didn't just absorb the serum. They merged with it, creating an entirely new compound. We're seeing changes at the quantum level." Captain Henderson cleared her throat. "What are the security implications?" Lieutenant Theron's position gives her access to sensitive areas of the ship. "I'm still me, Captain," Nova assured her, though she understood the concern. "My cognitive functions feel enhanced, but my core personality and memories remain intact." Marcus nodded in agreement. Brain scans confirm this. If anything, her neural pathways have become more efficient. However, he hesitated, exchanging glances with Raven. "However," Nova prompted, picking up on their increased heart rates. "The transformation isn't complete," Raven finished. "Your cells are still evolving, and we're detecting unusual energy signatures emanating from your body. They're affecting some of our more sensitive equipment." As if to prove her point, the holographic display flickered and distorted as Nova reached toward it. She quickly withdrew her hand, watching as the image stabilized. "I need to understand what's happening to me. The research implications alone are secondary to your safety and the safety of this ship," Captain Henderson interrupted firmly. "Until we understand the full extent of these changes, you'll remain under medical observation." Nova wanted to protest, but a sudden surge of energy through her body made her gasp. The medical bay's lights flickered, and several monitors sparked. She could feel power coursing through her transformed scales, seeking an outlet. "Another energy spike," Raven reported, frantically taking readings. "They're getting stronger." Marcus rushed to Nova's side with a hypospray. "This should help stabilize the reaction. We've synthesized it based on your new cellular structure." As the medication entered her system, Nova felt the energy surge subside, but she knew it was only temporary. Her body was becoming something entirely new, and none of them, not even she, could predict what that meant. "Captain," she said, meeting Henderson's steady gaze, "I don't think observation alone will be sufficient. We need to actively study these changes if we want to control them. And," she hesitated, knowing her next words would be controversial, "we need to consider the possibility that this transformation might be exactly what we needed for true cross-species medical advancement." The captain's expression remained neutral, but Nova's enhanced senses picked up subtle signs of agreement. "Proceed with caution, doctors," Henderson finally said. "Lieutenant Theron, you'll report any unusual sensations immediately. We're in uncharted territory here. As the others began setting up more sophisticated monitoring equipment, Nova closed her eyes and focused on the changes within her body. She could feel her cells continuing to evolve, her consciousness expanding in ways she had never imagined possible. Whatever she was becoming, she knew one thing with certainty: the implications would reshape the future of human-alien relations forever. The ship's systems flickered again as Nova paced the reinforced containment chamber, her crystalline scales emanating pulses of energy that interfered with nearby equipment. Through the observation window, Marcus and Raven worked tirelessly at their stations, racing to understand the escalating changes in her body. Energy output has increased another 30%, Raven announced, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic displays. The quantum fluctuations are becoming more frequent. Nova pressed her hand against the transparent barrier, watching as ripples of energy spread from her touch. The serum isn't just enhancing my physical capabilities anymore. It's allowing me to interact with energy fields on a fundamental level. Marcus frowned at his readings. Your cellular structure is still evolving, becoming more crystalline. It's as if your Andromesian biology is trying to create a perfect synthesis with the serum's components. The ship suddenly lurched, and warning klaxons blared throughout the medical bay. Captain Henderson's voice crackled over the intercom. All hands, brace for gravitational disturbance. We're detecting massive energy fluctuations from an unknown source. Nova's enhanced senses tingled with awareness. It's not unknown, she said, her vertical pupils dilating as understanding dawned. The energy signature. It matches the frequencies my body is generating, but on a massive scale. Raven's eyes widened as she correlated the data. She's right. Whatever's out there, it's resonating with Nova's transformed biology. The frequencies are nearly identical. The ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to ripple and distort. Nova felt a pull deep within her altered cells, as if something vast and ancient was calling to her. "This is Lieutenant Commander Jackson," a new voice announced over the intercom. "Engineering reports critical power fluctuations. Whatever's out there is draining our systems." Nova watched as emergency lights activated throughout the medical bay. Her enhanced vision could perceive energy flowing through the ship's conduits, being drawn toward the mysterious phenomenon outside. But she could also see something else, patterns in the energy flow that seemed familiar, almost readable. "I think I can help," she said urgently. "My transformation, it's given me the ability to see and manipulate energy fields. If I can get to engineering." "Absolutely not," Marcus interrupted. "We have no idea how stable your condition is. The risks are less than the risk of losing the ship," Captain Henderson said, striding into the medical bay. Her uniform was slightly disheveled, suggesting she'd rushed from the bridge. "Our shields are failing, and we're losing power across all decks. If Lieutenant Theron thinks she can help, we need to try." Nova felt the captain's trust, like a physical force. "I'll need to be near the main power core. The resonance between my transformed biology and the external phenomenon. I might be able to create a buffer, prevent further drain." Henderson nodded sharply. "Dr. Reed, you'll accompany her. Dr. Blackwood, continue monitoring from here and coordinate with engineering. Move." As Marcus deactivated the containment field, Nova stepped out, consciously controlling her strength to avoid damaging the deck plating. They rushed through corridors bathed in red emergency lighting, crew members pressing against walls to let them pass. In engineering, Lieutenant Commander Jackson met them at the entrance, his dark face gleaming with sweat. "Power levels at 30% and dropping. Whatever you're going to do it fast." Nova approached the pulsing core, her transformed senses overwhelmed by the energy pattern swirling around her. She could feel the external force pulling at the ship's power, but she could also sense how to counter it. Raising her hands, she focused on the crystalline structure of her scales. "Nova," Marcus warned, "your energy readings are spiking dangerously." "I know what I'm doing," she replied, though in truth, She was operating purely on instinct. Her transformed body seemed to know what was needed, even if her conscious mind didn't fully understand. Energy began flowing from her scales, creating a complex geometric pattern in the air around the core. The ship's power drain slowed, then stopped as her energy field established a protective barrier. "It's working," Jackson reported, relief evident in his voice. "Power levels stabilizing." But Nova barely heard him. Her consciousness was expanding, following the energy patterns outward into space. What she found there made her gasp. "We're not alone," she whispered. "There's something out there, something that's been waiting for this moment." Through their shared energy resonance, Nova could sense vast crystalline structures hidden in the void, ancient technology that seemed to recognize what she had become. The serum hadn't just transformed her, it had awakened something dormant in her species' genetic memory. As she maintained the protective field around the ship, Nova realized that her accidental exposure to the serum might have been more than just chance. They were standing on the brink of a discovery that would change everything, if they could survive what came next. Nova stood transfixed before the main viewport in engineering, her crystalline form pulsing with energy that now matched the rhythms of the massive structures emerging from the void of space. The ancient artifacts dwarfed the horizon, their geometric patterns identical to those now etched into her transformed scales. Multiple objects detected. Lieutenant Commander Jackson reported from his station. Crystalline composition. Size estimates ranging from 1 to 10 kilometers. They're arranging themselves in some sort of formation around us. Captain Henderson's voice crackled through the comm. "Lieutenant Theron, what are we dealing with?" Nova's enhanced senses stretched outward, reading the energy signatures like a familiar language. "They're repositories, Captain. Ancient Andromesian technology, created by my ancestors before the great collapse of our civilization. I can feel their purpose." Marcus approached her cautiously, medical scanner wearing. "Your neural patterns are synchronizing with the external energy fields. Whatever these structures are, they're responding to your transformed biology." A sudden surge of information flooded Nova's consciousness, making her stagger. Raven's voice came through the comm, tight with concern. "Her quantum signature is fluctuating wildly. The structures are attempting to establish a direct connection." "I'm seeing something," Nova gasped, her vertical pupils dilating fully as visions crashed through her mind. "Our ancestors, they were trying to evolve beyond physical form. The serum, it didn't just enhance me. It completed a process they began millennia ago." The ship shuddered as beams of crystalline energy shot from the ancient structures, intersecting around the horizon in a complex geometric web. Alarms blared as ship systems reacted to the unprecedented energy levels. "Shields are holding," Jackson reported, "but these energy patterns, they're unlike anything in our database. They're not attacking. They're scanning us." Nova nodded, her transformed body resonating with each pulse. "They're analyzing the changes in my biology. The serum created what my ancestors couldn't achieve, a perfect fusion of organic and crystalline structures at the quantum level." "That's fascinating," Henderson replied tersely. "But how do we know these repositories aren't a threat? Your ancestors' technology has been dormant for thousands of years." Before Nova could respond, the energy web surrounding the ship intensified, and new information cascaded through her enhanced consciousness. Her scales blazed with light as she processed the ancient knowledge. "They were waiting," she breathed. "All this time, they were waiting for someone to achieve the transformation. The repositories contain more than just technology. They hold the complete history and scientific knowledge of my people's golden age." Marcus grabbed her arm as she swayed, overwhelmed by the data stream. "Your body temperature is rising dangerously. Whatever connection you've established, it's pushing your transformed biology to its limits." "I can handle it," Nova insisted, though pain laced through her words. "This is too important. The repositories, they're showing me why the serum worked. Human combat enhancement technology unknowingly replicated key elements of ancient Andromesian bioengineering. The combination created something entirely new. Raven's excited voice cut through the tension. The quantum resonance patterns. They're stabilizing, forming a coherent network between Nova and the repositories. It's like they're calibrating themselves to her new form. Another wave of energy pulsed through the ship, but this time Nova was ready. She raised her hands, her crystalline scales refracting the energy harmlessly around the horizon's hull. The gesture felt natural now, as if she'd always known how to do it. "Captain," she said, her voice steady despite the strain. "These repositories aren't just revealing our past, they're offering us a future. The combined knowledge of human and Andromedian science could revolutionize both our societies." Henderson was silent for a long moment, considering the implications. "And you're certain you can control this connection? That it won't overwhelm you or endanger the ship?" Nova watched as her reflected image in the viewport shifted, her transformed body now perfectly aligned with the energy patterns emanating from the repositories. "I am what both our peoples were working toward, even if neither knew it. A bridge between organic and crystalline, past and future." She turned to face Marcus, seeing the concern in his eyes. "The serum didn't just change me. It awakened something that was always meant to be. And now," she gestured to the massive structures surrounding them, their crystalline surfaces now pulsing in perfect harmony with her own transformed biology. "Now we have a chance to understand it all." The repositories began to move, realigning themselves into a new configuration that somehow felt right to Nova's enhanced senses. She could feel the weight of millennia of knowledge waiting to be rediscovered, and the promise of advancements that neither humans nor Andromedians had dreamed possible. But as power continued to surge through her transformed body, Nova realized that accessing that knowledge would require more than just her evolution. It would demand trust, cooperation, and the courage to step into an uncertain future where the boundaries between species and technology might cease to exist entirely. The bridge of the horizon hummed with nervous energy as Nova stood before the assembled senior staff, her crystalline form casting prismatic patterns across the tactical displays. 2 weeks had passed since their encounter with the ancient repositories, and the implications of their discovery were still unfolding. "The integration is complete," Nova reported, gesturing to the holographic display where Raven and Marcus had compiled their findings. "The repositories have accepted my transformed state as a viable template for future evolution. They're ready to share their knowledge." Captain Henderson leaned forward in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "And you're certain this knowledge can be safely accessed? That it won't overwhelm our systems, or you?" The initial transfer nearly burned out her neural pathways, Marcus added, concern evident in his voice. "Even with her enhanced biology, there are limits to what one person can handle." Nova's scales rippled with gentle luminescence as she responded. "That's why the repositories showed us how to create this." She held up a small crystalline device, its structure mirroring the patterns of her transformed skin. "A quantum interface that can safely channel and store the ancient knowledge." Raven stepped forward, her dark eyes bright with excitement. "We've already begun analyzing the first data packets. The technological implications are staggering. The repositories contain solutions to problems we hadn't even begun to conceptualize. And the medical applications," Marcus continued, pulling up his own research data. "The way Nova's body integrated with the serum. It's opened up entirely new possibilities for human enhancement and healing. We're seeing potential treatments for conditions we thought were incurable." Lieutenant Commander Jackson cleared his throat. "What about the security concerns? This level of technology, this kind of power, every military force in known space will want it." "Which is precisely why we need to proceed carefully," Henderson agreed. "Lieutenant Theron, you've become the key to unlocking this knowledge. That makes you both invaluable and vulnerable." Nova's vertical pupils contracted slightly as she considered her response. "Captain, what happened to me wasn't just an accident. The serum, the repositories, they're proof that humans and Andromedians were always meant to work together. Our separate paths led to this point of convergence." She waved her hand, and the holographic display shifted to show the massive repositories now following the horizon in a protective formation. They're not just archives of the past. They're tools for building a shared future. The repositories won't unlock their full potential until both our species are ready to proceed together. The quantum resonance patterns confirm this, Raven added. The interface Nova created requires both human and Andromedian biosignatures to function at full capacity. It's a built-in safeguard, ensuring cooperation. Henderson stood, walking to the viewport where the crystalline structures gleamed against the starfield. The Stellar Alliance Council will want a full report. This changes everything. Our understanding of Andromedian history, the future of human enhancement technology, possibly the very course of both our species' evolution. Then let's give them something remarkable to consider, Nova said, her transformed body pulsing with quiet confidence. She placed the quantum interface on the conference table, where it activated automatically, projecting a detailed schematic of its own structure. This device represents the first true fusion of human and Andromedian technology. But it's only the beginning. Marcus stepped closer, examining the projection. The serum that started all this, it was never meant to be just a military enhancement. Your transformation showed us it could be so much more. A bridge between worlds. Nova agreed, her scales refracting the starlight in complex patterns. My people lost their way trying to force evolution. Humans were pushing the boundaries of their own potential. Together, we found a path forward that neither of us could have discovered alone. Captain Henderson returned to her chair, her decision evident in her bearing. Very well. We'll set course for Alliance headquarters. Lieutenant Theron, you and your team will prepare a comprehensive report. The Council needs to understand not just what we found, but what it means for our future. As the senior staff dispersed to their duties, Nova remained at the viewport, watching the ancient repositories move in perfect synchronization with the ship. Her transformed body hummed with potential, a living testament to what humanity and Andromedians could achieve together. The serum that had changed her had done more than bridge the gap between species. It had opened a door to possibilities neither civilization had imagined. As the horizon moved through space, carrying its revolutionary discovery toward home, Nova knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in both their people's stories. The future would bring challenges, questions, and undoubtedly attempts to misuse what they had found. But as she stood there, her crystalline form a harmony of human ingenuity and Andromedian potential, Nova felt ready to face whatever came next. After all, evolution, like progress, was never meant to be a solitary journey.